What happens when the very bond meant to save you becomes the chain that destroys you? For Elara Moonwhisper, life as an Omega in the Silverpine Pack meant quiet obedience, silent suffering, and the constant weight of being invisible. She swept the pack halls, served at ceremonies, and kept her eyes lowered when alphas passed. Her scent, soft lavender, morning dew, and wildflowers, was too gentle for a world that valued strength above all else. Her wolf was silent, dormant, a whisper that never quite formed words. The pack called her broken. Her parents looked away in shame, and she believed them all. But when Alpha Darien Blackthorn stood before 300 witnesses at the Harvest Moon ceremony and rejected their fated bond with words sharp enough to sever her soul, everything changed. And what happens next? No one was prepared for. Not the pack that cast her out, not the Alpha who condemned her, not even the ancient powers that had been waiting in the darkness for 23 years. Because sometimes the weakest wolf is only sleeping, and when she wakes, kingdoms fall. The harvest moon hung fat and orange over the Silverpine territory, casting long shadows across the ceremonial grounds. Elara stood at the edge of the gathering, where Omegas belonged, far from the bonfire, far from the feast tables laden with roasted venison and honeyed mead, far from the circle of power where alphas and high-ranking betas discussed pack politics and territory disputes. She wore a simple gray dress, nothing like the rich burgundies and deep emeralds that adorned the females near the alpha's platform. Her dark hair was braided simply, woven with a single sprig of lavender from the garden she tended behind the pack house. She didn't expect to be noticed. She never was. The ceremony was sacred, ancient, a night when the moon goddess strengthened pack bonds, and sometimes, if the moon smiled upon them, revealed fated mates. The air thrummed with anticipation and power. Wolves shifted restlessly in their human skins. Scent signatures mingled and clashed, dominance and submission, desire and rivalry. The complex hierarchy of a pack written in pheromones only they could read. Alpha Darien Blackthorn stood at the center of it all, commanding as a storm. He was 32, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes like polished amber. His scent rolled across the gathering, forest depths, dying embers, ozone before lightning, and cold steel. Pure dominance, absolute authority. And every unmated female watched him with hungry eyes, especially Seraphina Crimsonveil, the beta's daughter, whose cinnamon and iron scent flared possessively whenever she moved near him. Elara kept her distance, content to remain invisible. Then the moon goddess had other plans. The moment struck like lightning at midnight. One heartbeat, Elara stood alone at the gathering's edge. The next, a golden thread of pure light snapped into existence, binding her chest to his. The bond blazed to life with such force that she gasped, stumbling forward. Heat flooded her veins. Recognition thundered through her bones. The world contracted to a single point. Him. Mate. 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 Her silent wolf stirred for the first time in her life, whimpering with joy and longing. Darien's head whipped toward her, his amber eyes flaring wide. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, something flickered across his face. Shock. Wonder. The beginning of something that might have been recognition. Then his expression went cold. The entire pack had frozen. 300 wolves watched as their alpha's fated mate was revealed. Whispers erupted like wildfire. An Omega? Impossible. The moon goddess must be testing him. Seraphina's scent turned sharp with rage, cinnamon burning to bitterness. Darien stepped down from the platform, moving through the crowd with predatory grace. Wolves parted before him. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. The bond pulled at her, singing with joy, urging her forward. Maybe he felt it too. Maybe. He stopped 3 feet away, towering over her. His scent should have been comforting. That forest and embers warmth that her wolf recognized as home. Instead, it was edged with something harsh, rejection already forming. Ilara Moonwhisper. His voice carried across the silent gathering, formal and cold. The moon goddess has revealed you as my fated mate. Hope fluttered in her chest, fragile as a moth. I, Darian Blackthorn, alpha of the Silverpine Pack, reject this bond. Time stopped. The world tilted. I reject you as mate. I reject you as Luna. I sever this bond in the name of pack strength and the future of Silverpine. The bond didn't just break, it shattered. Pain exploded through Ilara's chest, as if he'd driven a blade between her ribs. The golden thread turned black, corroding, disintegrating. She felt it tear away from her soul, taking pieces of her with it. Her knees hit the ground. A scream locked in her throat. The agony was fire and ice, and the feeling of being unmade at the seams. Through the haze of pain, she heard Darian's voice continue, addressing the pack now, not her. An alpha cannot be bound to weakness. Our pack faces threats from the Ironwood territory to the north and rogue attacks from the eastern borders. We need strength. We need a Luna who can stand beside me in war, who can lead the females, who can bear strong heirs. His scent flared with absolute conviction. This bond is a mistake. The moon goddess tests us, and I choose my pack over fate. Seraphina moved to his side, her hand resting possessively on his arm, her triumph evident in every line of her body. Ilara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The pain was everything. Remove her! Darian's command was absolute. 2 beta guards grabbed her arms, hauling her to her feet. Her legs wouldn't support her. They dragged her through the crowd, past faces twisted with pity or satisfaction, past her parents. Her mother looked away. Her father's expression was stone. Past the feast tables and the bonfire, out beyond the pack grounds. They dumped her at the territory border, where the forest began, dark and wild and forbidden. Alpha's orders, one guard said, not unkindly. You're banished. If you cross back into Silverpine lands, you'll be killed as a rogue. Then they were gone. Ilara lay on the frozen ground as the first snow of winter began to fall. The bond severing had left a wound in her chest that wouldn't stop bleeding. Metaphysical, but real enough that she could feel her life force draining away. Rejected mates rarely survived the night. The pain alone killed most. Those who lived were broken, hollow things. She tried to stand, failed, tried again. Her body refused to obey. In the distance, the pack celebration continued. Music and laughter drifted on the wind, celebrating their alpha's choice, his strength, his wisdom in rejecting a worthless omega. Snow gathered in her hair, on her eyelashes. Cold seeped through her thin dress. The forest loomed ahead, and behind it, a storm was building. She could smell it on the wind, ice and fury, and the promise of death. She crawled forward, away from Silverpine, into the wilderness. If she was going to die, she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of finding her body on their borders. The storm hit within the hour, a blizzard that turned the world white and howling. Wind tore at her clothes, her skin. Snow blinded her. The temperature plummeted. Ilara stumbled through drifts that reached her thighs, then her waist. Her fingers had gone numb. Her lips were blue. She found shelter by accident. An abandoned barn, half collapsed, its roof open to the storm in places, but with one corner still intact. She crawled inside, pressing herself against the back wall, where hay bales still remained from some long-ago autumn. The pain from the severed bond was worse than the cold. It pulsed with every heartbeat, a reminder that she'd been found and discarded in the same breath. Unwanted, unworthy, broken. Her wolf, that presence that had finally stirred to life only to lose its mate immediately, had gone silent again. More than silent. Dying. "I'm sorry," Alara whispered to her wolf, to herself, to no one. "I'm so sorry." The cold became absolute. Her shivering stopped. A bad sign. Some distant part of her mind recognized. Hypothermia's final stage. She couldn't feel her hands anymore. Her breathing had gone shallow. "This is it," she thought with strange clarity. "This is how I die. Alone in a barn in a blizzard. Rejected and forgotten." She closed her eyes. Peace, at least. No more pain. No more shame. Time became strange. Maybe minutes passed. Maybe hours. She felt herself drifting, consciousness ebbing like tide pulling away from shore. Then warmth. It started small, a presence near her face, breath against her cheek. Then another. And another. Weight pressed against her sides, her back, her legs. Soft fur. The scent of wild things, of pine forests and winter storms and ancient power. Alara forced her eyes open. Wolves. Massive wolves, far larger than any pack wolf she'd ever seen, surrounded her. Their fur was thick and dark, their eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. She tried to count them through her fading consciousness. 1, 2, 3. Their bodies pressed against hers, sharing heat. 4, 5, 6, forming a circle around her, blocking the wind. 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 massive wolves, each radiating warmth and power, creating a living shelter against the storm. They'd saved her life. But why? The largest wolf, the one pressed against her back, warming her spine, shifted. The transformation was fluid, practiced, utterly controlled. Where the wolf had been, a man now crouched. Even in her semi-conscious state, Alara registered his presence like a shock to her system. He was older than Darian, maybe 40, with silver threading through dark hair and scars crossing his bare chest and arms. So his face was hard angles and weathered strength, the kind earned through decades of survival. But his eyes, storm gray and ancient, looked at her with something like recognition. His scent washed over her, aged oak, winter snow, pine, and approaching storms. Authority and power, yes, but different from Darian's dominance. This was earned, not inherited. Chosen, not given. "Found you," he said, his voice rough with relief. He pulled a cloak from somewhere, wrapping it around her shaking form. "We've been searching for 3 years, tracking the prophecy across 4 territories." His hand touched her face, checking for frostbite, utterly gentle despite his obvious strength. "We've been waiting for you, little matriarch. Welcome home." The words made no sense. Matriarch? Prophecy? She wanted to ask, but darkness was pulling at her again, and stronger now. "Sleep," he commanded softly. "You're safe now. The Unchained guard their own, and you are ours, have always been ours." Consciousness slipped away, but for the first time since the rejection, the pain in her chest eased, just slightly, just enough. She slept surrounded by warmth and protection, while outside the storm raged on. Alara woke to firelight and the scent of brewing tea. Her body ached everywhere, but the soul-deep agony of the severed bond had dulled to a manageable throb. She was wrapped in furs, lying on a bedroll near a fire. The barn's interior looked different than she remembered. The corner where she'd collapsed was now almost cozy, with supplies stacked against the walls and travel packs arranged neatly. The 10 wolves from her fever dreams had been real. They sat or stood around the fire in human form now, all male, all powerfully built, all watching her with expressions ranging from relief to curiosity to fierce protectiveness. The silver-haired man from last night crouched beside her, offering a cup of tea. "Drink. It's willow bark and honey. It'll help with the pain." Ilara struggled to sit up. Every muscle screamed protest. She took the cup with shaking hands, inhaling steam that smelled of herbs and sweetness. The first sip was heaven. "Who are you?" Her voice came out as a rasp. "My name is Cale Ironwood. I lead the Unchained." He gestured to the others, an elite guard sworn not to any pack, but to an ancient prophecy. His storm-gray eyes studied her face. "We've been searching for you since the night you were born, Ilara Moonwhisper. Or rather, since the night your power was bound, and you disappeared from our sight." "I don't understand." One of the others, a younger man with kind eyes and the build of a warrior, moved closer. "I'm Marcus. That's Rafe, Thorn, Cade, Julian, Asher, Dorian, Silas, and the grumpy one in the corner is Garrett." Each nodded in turn. "We're here because of what you are, what you were always meant to be." "I'm nothing," Ilara whispered. "Just an Omega, broken. My wolf won't even speak to me." "Your wolf won't speak because she can't," Kyle said, his voice edged with carefully controlled anger. "Your parents bound her when you were 3 days old. They wrapped your power in magical chains and locked it so deep you couldn't feel her, couldn't shift, couldn't access even a fraction of what you truly are." The words hit like physical blows. What?" Kyle's expression softened. "You're not broken, Ilara. You never were. You're the moonborn matriarch, the one the old prophecy speaks of. The wolf queen who comes once in 1,000 years, marked by the moon goddess herself, powerful enough to unite territories and end wars." He paused. "Your parents bound you out of fear. Omega wolves aren't supposed to have power. You were an impossibility. They were terrified the pack would kill you, or that another pack would steal you, so they hired a dark witch to suppress everything you were." Ilara's hands trembled, tea sloshing in the cup. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Thorn, a scarred warrior with sharp features, spoke up. "Have you never wondered why you felt different? Why other Omegas could at least shift, at least hear their wolves, but you couldn't? Why your scent carries lavender and wildflowers instead of the typical Omega markers?" She had wondered. Of course she had. But wondering and knowing were different things. "The binding should have lasted forever," Kyle continued, "unbreakable. But the witch who cast it didn't account for one possibility." His expression turned grim. "A fated mate rejection." Understanding crashed over her like ice water. "The trauma of bond severing is powerful enough to shatter magical bindings," Kyle explained. "The pain, the soul damage, the fundamental wrongness of a mate rejection. It's one of the few forces in our world strong enough to break ancient magic." He reached out, carefully taking the teacup before she could drop it. "Darian Blackthorn didn't just reject you, Ilara. He didn't just break your heart or sever a bond. He unknowingly freed you." A wave of power washed over her body, sudden and overwhelming. Ilara gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. Something was moving inside her, unfurling like wings too long caged. Finally. The voice in her mind was female, ancient, and absolutely furious. "Finally, little one. We are free." "My wolf," Ilara breathed. She's speaking to me." "Speaking?" "I'm roaring. Do you feel it? Do you feel what they locked away?" Power surged through her veins like liquid moonlight. Her skin began to glow faintly silver. The men around the fire stepped back, awe written across their faces. "It's beginning," Kyle said, his voice rough with emotion. "The awakening." Ilara's body convulsed. Not pain. This was different. This was transformation. but not the normal shift she'd seen pack wolves perform. This was elemental, fundamental, a rewriting of reality. Her bones began to flow, not snapping but reshaping, growing, extending. It should have hurt, but instead it felt like finally taking a full breath after years of shallow gasps. Fur erupted across her skin, not brown or gray like normal wolves, but silver-white shot through with threads of pure moonlight. Her hands became paws, but massive ones, twice the size of any alpha's. The change continued, impossible and perfect. Her spine extended, lengthened. Power poured into her, like water filling a vessel that had no bottom. Her muscles rippled and reformed, packed with supernatural strength. Her senses exploded outward. She could smell every individual scent in the barn, could hear heartbeats 300 yards away, could taste pack magic and ancient power on the wind. Her vision sharpened, colors becoming impossibly vivid. And her eyes, she couldn't see them, but she could feel them glowing with inner light, brilliant silver blue like moonlight on snow. The transformation completed in a rush of released energy that blew out the fire and sent furs flying. Ilara stood on 4 massive paws, her head nearly brushing the barn's remaining roof beams. She was easily half again, as large as any alpha wolf she'd ever seen. Her fur rippled with actual light, silver flames that didn't burn. Power radiated from her in waves. This, her wolf purred with savage satisfaction, is what we are. This is what they feared. This is why they locked us away. Kyle had dropped to one knee, his head bowed. Around the fire, the other 9 had done the same, showing throat and submission to a power they'd searched for, and for years. "All hail the moonborn matriarch," Kyle said, his voice carrying reverent wonder. "She who was lost is found. She who was bound is free. The prophecy awakens." Ilara's first howl as her true self shook the barn's remaining timbers and sent snow cascading from pine branches half a mile away. It was a sound of pure power, of rage and rebirth and terrible beauty. Every wolf within 10 miles would have felt it like a shockwave through their bones. In Silverpine territory, Darian Blackthorn's head snapped up from the treaty he'd been reviewing, his wolf going absolutely still with recognition and dread. In the barn, Ilara's massive wolf form began to shrink, the transformation reversing as she learned control. Within moments, she was human again, naked and glowing with residual power. Her dark hair now shot through with silver streaks that hadn't been there before. Marcus quickly offered a spare shirt and pants. She dressed with shaking hands, her mind reeling. "What?" she managed. "What was that?" "That was your birthright," Kyle said, rising from his knee but keeping his tone respectful. "The form you were always meant to have. Your wolf isn't just any wolf, Ilara. She's a primal, an ancient bloodline that hasn't manifested in living memory. You're not an Omega. You never were. You're the first true Alpha born to our kind in a millennium." Rafe stepped forward, offering her water. "The prophecy calls you the matriarch, a queen wolf who doesn't rule through a mate's power, but through her own. Who can command without speaking, heal with a touch, and protect those who have none to protect them." "The old texts," Dorian added, his scholarly voice excited, "describe her as coming in darkness when hope is lost, born low but rising high, rejected by those who should have cherished her, but crowned by those who truly see." He smiled. "They describe you." Ilara sank down onto a hay bale, overwhelmed. "My parents did this. They bound me?" Kyle nodded, his expression gentle. "They were afraid. When you were born and the pack's elder sensed your power, she warned them that you'd be in danger. Other packs would come for you, use you, breed you for your bloodline, or kill you to prevent you from rising. Your parents thought they were saving you. They mutilated me, Alara said, her voice breaking. They took everything I was supposed to be. Yes, Kale agreed, not sugarcoating it. They made a choice out of fear that stole your childhood, your identity, your power. That choice deserves reckoning. He crouched in front of her, his storm-gray eyes serious. But it also kept you alive long enough to reach this moment. A terrible price for survival. But you're here. You're alive. And now you're free. And now we make them understand, her wolf growled. What they threw away. Over the following days, Alara learned to control her gifts. The Unchained had turned the abandoned barn into a temporary camp, extending their stay while she adjusted to her new reality. Kyle proved to be a patient teacher, guiding her through transformation after transformation until she could shift as easily as breathing. Feel it here, he'd say, touching her solar plexus. The shift isn't forced, it's a release. Let your wolf flow through instead of fighting to contain her. She practiced until she could shift partially. Just claws, just enhanced strength, just heightened senses, without full transformation. Control was everything. But the physical changes were only part of her awakening. One morning, Marcus cut his hand badly while sharpening a blade. Without thinking, Alara placed her hands over the wound. Silver light poured from her palms, knitting flesh and sealing skin until no trace of injury remained. Healing, Kyle said with satisfaction. A matriarch can restore what's broken, not just bodies, bonds, spirits, even damaged pack magic. The empathy came next. She began to feel the emotions of those around her, not thoughts, but the currents of feeling that moved through the Unchained. Marcus's homesickness for a sister he hadn't seen in years. Garrett's bone-deep loneliness despite being surrounded by brothers in arms. Silas's grief for a mate lost decades ago. She touched Silas's shoulder, feeling his sorrow like a weight. Can I help? You already are, Silas said quietly, and she realized her touch had eased the sharp edge of his pain. Not erasing it, grief deserved to be felt, but making it bearable. Then came the command ability. They were practicing combat, Thorn teaching her basic defense, when 3 rogue wolves stumbled upon their camp. The rogues were feral, dangerous, eyes wild with hunger and madness. They snarled, moving to attack. Alara's wolf surged forward instinctively. "Kneel!" The word emerged as both human speech and a pulse of pure alpha authority. The 3 rogues dropped immediately, throats bared, whimpering submission to a power they couldn't resist. Mother of the Moon, Cade whispered, awed. She just commanded rogues. That's impossible. Nothing's impossible for a matriarch, Casual said, pride evident in his scent. That warm oak and storm smell now tinged with something like joy. Alara released the rogues with a warning to leave the territory and find a pack that would take them in. They fled, grateful for the mercy. Days turned to weeks. Alara's confidence grew with each passing sunset. The Unchained weren't just guards. They became her family. They taught her to fight, to lead, to trust her instincts. They shared meals around the fire, swapping stories and laughter. Julian had a gift for music, playing a worn guitar while Asher's deep voice carried old pack songs. Dorian read to them from ancient texts, teaching Alara her own history. Marcus taught her to track. Rafe showed her how to read the wind for weather changes. And Kyle was constant, steady as stone, fierce as storms, with eyes that saw her not as she'd been, but as she was becoming. Their connection grew naturally, not forced by magic, but chosen through shared moments. The way he steadied her during a particularly difficult transformation. How he sat with her, during nightmares of the rejection that still haunted her. The careful way he asked permission before touching her shoulder, her hand, her face. "The bond between us," he said one night when they sat watch together, stars wheeling overhead, "isn't fated like the one Blackthorn broke. It's chosen, built on trust and respect and more if you want it, but only if you want it. You're free, Alara. You choose your mate, your pack, your destiny." She leaned against his shoulder, breathing in aged oak and winter snow. "I choose you," she said simply. "I choose all of you, my Unchained, my found family." The bond snapped into place between them, but this was nothing like the violent, forced connection with Darien. This was gentle, consensual, a golden thread woven from choice and care. Kyle's wolf rose to meet hers, and they recognized each other not as fated destiny, but as chosen partnership. A true mate bond, earned and offered freely. Around them, the other 9 howled their approval to the moon. But peace never lasts forever. A Silverpine scout discovered their camp 3 weeks after Alara's awakening, and she was out practicing aerial combat techniques with Rafe, learning to use her massive size as an advantage rather than a hindrance, when the scent hit her. Fresh Silverpine markers. Fear. Shock. Retreat. The scout had seen her true form, and now he was running back to report to his alpha that the rejected Omega was not only alive, but transformed into something beyond comprehension. "They'll come," Kyle said that night, his expression grim. "Blackthorn won't be able to resist. Either he'll want you back, or he'll see you as a threat to his authority." "Let them come," Alara said, her wolf's presence strong and sure within her. "I'm not running anymore." The Unchained prepared for war. They arrived 4 days later, a war party of over 20 wolves, led by Darien himself. Serafina prowled at his side, on her cinnamon and iron scent laced with poisonous satisfaction. Behind them, Betas and high-ranking warriors formed an impressive fighting force. Alara stood at the forest clearing's edge, with the Unchained ranged behind her. She wore simple clothes, dark pants, a fitted shirt, but carried herself like the queen she was becoming. Silver streaked her hair. Her eyes glowed faintly even in human form. Her scent had changed too. The lavender and wildflowers were still there, but now backed by thunderstorm ozone and moonlight. On snow, markers of elemental power, Darien stopped 30 feet away, shifting from his alpha form to human. His forest and ember scent rolled across the clearing, and Alara felt nothing. No pull, no recognition. The rejected bond was truly dead, and she was glad. His amber eyes widened as he took in her transformation. "Alara, how are you alive? Did you hope I was dead?" Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "Did you sleep well, Alpha Blackthorn, knowing you'd cast your fated mate into a blizzard to die?" Serafina shifted human as well, her beautiful face twisted with contempt. "You should have stayed dead, Omega. You're an embarrassment, a reminder of the moon goddess's mistake." "The only mistake," Kyle said, his voice carrying quiet menace, "was letting you live after what you've done. Both of you." Darien's attention snapped to Kyle, noting the way he stood close to Alara, protective and partnered. "Who are you to speak to an alpha?" "I'm Kale Ironwood, first guard of the Unchained, and chosen mate to the moonborn matriarch." He smiled, sharp as broken glass. "No, I outrank you in every way that matters, pup." Darien's face flushed with rage. "Matriarch? She's nothing. A broken Omega I rightly rejected." "She was never broken," Thorn interrupted. "Just bound. Bound by parents who feared her power. Bound by magic that your rejection shattered." He grinned, showing too many teeth. "You freed her, Alpha. And now you get to see what you threw away." Seraphina laughed, cruel and cutting. Power? Look at her. She's still the same weak thing we always knew. Kill them all, she snarled to the warriors behind her. Rogues and traitors, all of them. She shifted, launching herself at Alara with practiced speed, claws extended for a killing blow. Alara didn't even shift. She simply caught Seraphina midair with one hand, power flooding her limbs with supernatural strength. But the female wolf, large for her rank, looked suddenly tiny in Alara's grip. Seraphina's eyes went wide with shock and terror as Alara's fingers glowed with silver light. You wanted to kill me, Alara said softly. You celebrated my banishment. Stood beside the male who rejected me and smiled while I was thrown away like trash. She tightened her grip slightly, Seraphina whimpering. But I am not the one who will answer for crimes today. She tossed Seraphina backward, not to injure, just to dismiss. The female wolf tumbled across the ground and scrambled behind Darien, shaking with fear. The Silverpine warriors shifted nervously, suddenly uncertain. Darien's face had gone pale. What are you? I'm what you destroyed, Alara said. What your rejection freed. What your pack lost when they followed you in cruelty. She stepped forward, and power radiated from her like heat from a flame. I am the moonborn matriarch, the prophecy made flesh. The queen your ancestors prayed would come, and your generation tried to kill. Behind her, the Unchained shifted, but not into normal wolves. 10 massive, dire wolves appeared, each one ancient and powerful beyond measure. They were twice the size of normal alphas, with fur that seemed to absorb light, and eyes that glowed with primordial fire. These weren't pack wolves. These were guardians from an older age, sworn to an older power. The Silverpine warriors took involuntary steps back, terror sharp in their sense. Darien stared at the 10 dire wolves, then at Alara, then back again. Understanding dawned in his amber eyes, followed swiftly by crushing regret. The old prophecy, he whispered, and the one my grandfather told me was just a story. When the moon weeps silver and the youngest becomes eldest, when the broken shows whole and the cast-out claims crown, then shall the matriarch rise, guarded by the Unchained, to lead in the time of darkness. I never believed. You never believed, Alara agreed. And now, here we are. Darien dropped to his knees, his wolf forcing submission even as his human pride rebelled. Mercy, he gasped out. I was wrong. I see it now. Please, mercy. Alara's voice was cold. You threw me into a blizzard. You publicly humiliated me. You rejected a bond sacred to the moon goddess herself because I didn't fit your idea of strength. She circled him slowly, a predator assessing prey. Give me one reason I shouldn't do to you what you did to me. Because you're better than me, Darien said, and for the first time, his voice held genuine remorse. Because you're everything a true alpha should be, and I was a fool, blinded by pride and ambition. Seraphina made a small sound of protest, but when Alara's glowing eyes turned to her, she shut her mouth with an audible snap. Alara looked at the assembled Silverpine wolves, some of whom had mocked her, some of whom had looked away during her humiliation, some of whom had been too afraid to help. She could feel their fear now, their regret, their dawning understanding of what they'd lost. She could kill them all, could command them to kneel and never rise, could take vengeance that would be absolutely justified. But vengeance wasn't justice, and she was no longer a victim. She was a queen. I am Alara Moonwhisper Ironwood, she said, her voice carrying across the clearing with absolute authority. Moonborn matriarch, alpha of the Unchained, and rightful sovereign of these territories. I claim this land from the old border to the northern ridges. from the eastern streams to the western mountains. This is my domain now, and my laws will govern here. She turned back to Darien. You will return to Silverpine, Alpha Blackthorn. You will tell your pack what you saw here. You will warn them that any wolf who crosses into matriarch territory seeking violence will find it, but those who come seeking justice or sanctuary will be welcomed. She paused. And you will bring my parents to the border at the next full moon. They will answer for what they did. Not to you. To me. Darien nodded, unable to meet her eyes. Seraphina Crimson Veil, Alara said, turning to the trembling female. You wanted to be Luna. You wanted power and status. Consider how you used both, how you reveled in my pain, how you would have led. Seraphina's scent spiked with terror. You are stripped of rank, Alara declared. No longer Beta's daughter, no longer potential Luna. You will live as an Omega for 1 year, serving those you once commanded, learning humility or learning nothing. After that year, if you have truly changed, you may reclaim your rank. If not, she let the threat hang. Seraphina's face went white, but she nodded, understanding that this was mercy disguised as punishment. Go, Alara said to all of them. Take my message to Silverpine. Tell them the matriarch has risen. Tell them the age of cruelty is ending. Tell them a new law governs these mountains now. The Silverpine wolves fled, tails between their legs, leaving only Darien standing before her. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what it's worth. I'm truly sorry. Sorry doesn't undo what was done, Alara replied. But it's a start. Now go. He shifted and ran, the scent of regret trailing behind him. When they were gone, Kyle came to stand beside Alara, his hand finding hers. You showed mercy. I showed justice, she corrected. There's a difference. Yes, he agreed, pride warm in his voice. Yes, there is. My queen. The full moon rose over matriarch territory 3 weeks later, massive and silver bright. Alara stood at the border marker where Silverpine lands met her new domain, she wearing a dress of midnight blue that her found family had gifted her, her silver-streaked hair crowned with a circlet of woven moonstone and silver. The Unchained stood behind her, 10 dire wolves in human form, dressed for ceremony but ready for battle if needed. Darien appeared first, shifting at the tree line. Behind him came 2 older wolves, a male and female whose scents were painfully familiar. Lavender and cedar, honeysuckle and earth, her parents. They shifted to human form, and Alara's breath caught. They looked older than she remembered, worn down by guilt or time or both. Her mother's eyes were red from crying. Her father wouldn't meet her gaze. You called us, her mother, Lydia, said. We came. Tell me why, Alara said, her voice steady despite the emotion churning in her chest. Tell me why you bound your own daughter. Why you mutilated my wolf. Why you let me live thinking I was broken. Her father, Marcus, she'd forgotten she shared a name with one of the Unchained, finally looked up. We were afraid, he said simply. The night you were born, the Pack Elder sensed your power. She said you were marked by the Moon Goddess, that you carried primal blood. We were Omegas ourselves, Alara. We had no power to protect you from those who would take you, use you, or kill you. So you took it upon yourselves to destroy what I was, Alara said, to make me small and invisible and broken. Yes, Lydia whispered. We thought if you had no power, you'd be safe, that you could live a quiet life. We didn't know the binding would make you unable to shift at all, unable to hear your wolf. And the witch said, she choked on a sob. The witch said it would only suppress your power until you were old enough to control it. She lied. Or we misunderstood. Either way, We stole your childhood, your identity, your strength. You stole everything, Ilara agreed. And when I was rejected, when I needed you most, you looked away. We were ashamed, Marcus said. We thought the rejection would kill you. We couldn't bear to watch. He fell to his knees. We failed you in every way parents can fail a child. We deserve your hatred, your vengeance, whatever you choose to do to us. Ilara felt her wolf stirring, felt the anger and hurt that lived in her chest like a second heart. But she also felt Kale's steady presence behind her, felt the love of her found family, felt the power that now lived in her bones. And she was no longer the broken girl her parents had created. She was the queen she'd become. I don't hate you, she said quietly. I pity you. You were so afraid that you destroyed your own daughter trying to save her. That's a special kind of tragedy. She breathed deep. But I'm also not ready to forgive you. Maybe someday. Maybe never. That remains to be seen. Lydia's face crumpled. We understand. However, Ilara continued, you will have a chance to make amends, to prove that you can be better than your fear. She gestured to the territory behind her. I need advisors who understand what it's like to be powerless, who remember what it means to be invisible. You will serve in my court, not as honored parents, but as counselors for the lowest-ranked wolves who come seeking justice or sanctuary. Hope flickered in her father's eyes. You'd let us serve you? I'd let you try to earn back even a fraction of what you took, Ilara corrected. Whether you succeed is up to you. They bowed, accepting the terms. Darian stepped forward then, and Ilara noticed the changes in him. His scent was less arrogant, more uncertain. His amber eyes held genuine remorse. I've brought the tribute you requested, he said. 20 elk from our hunts, herbs from our healers, and my pledge that Silverpine will honor matriarch territory and laws. Accepted, Ilara said formally. And your pack? How do they fare under their alpha who rejected his fated mate? Darian's expression turned pained. They question me, as they should. Seraphina's demotion showed them I'm not infallible. Your mercy showed them what real strength looks like. He swallowed hard. I'm trying to be better, to lead with wisdom instead of just power. Good, Ilara said. See that you continue. The age of tyrant alphas is ending. Be the leader your pack deserves, or step aside for someone who will be. He nodded, then hesitated. May I speak freely? You may. I felt it break, he said quietly. The night I rejected you. I felt the bond shatter, and I told myself it was necessary, that I'd made the strong choice. But every night since, I've dreamed of silver wolves and prophecies, and a mistake so large it echoes through time. He looked at her directly. I rejected a goddess for a crown of tin. I threw away destiny for pride. I will regret it for the rest of my life. Yes, Ilara agreed simply. You will. Live with that. Let it make you wiser. She turned away, back toward her territory, her family, her future. This gathering is ended. Go in peace, and remember what you witnessed here. The matriarch has risen. The old ways are dead. A new age begins. And so Ilara's journey from broken Omega to crowned matriarch came full circle beneath the light of the full moon. She had been rejected, cast out, left to die, and from those ashes she had risen more powerful than anyone could have imagined. She had found family not in blood, but in choice, love not in fate, but in mutual respect and partnership, and strength not in dominance, but in mercy tempered with justice. The lesson was clear. Sometimes the bonds meant to save us must first break us. Sometimes we must be unmade to discover what we truly are. And sometimes The greatest power comes not from never falling, but from rising every time we're knocked down. The Unchained stood with their matriarch as she turned toward home, 10 dire wolves and 1 silver-crowned queen, walking into a future they would write together. Above them, the moon goddess smiled, her prophecy fulfilled, her chosen daughter finally free. But in the distance, past the northern ridges where matriarch territory ended and wild lands began, something ancient stirred. Dark magic that had been sleeping was waking. A blood moon was coming, the old texts warned, and with it, threats that would test even a matriarch's power. But that, dear listeners, is a story for another time. For now, Alara Moonwhisper Ironwood stood in her kingdom, and surrounded by those who loved her, no longer the rejected Omega, but the crowned queen, no longer the broken wolf, but the matriarch reborn. She had survived the impossible, claimed her birthright, and shown the world that true strength isn't born from dominance or pride, but from resilience, mercy, and the courage to keep choosing kindness even when the world has been cruel. What did you think of Alara's transformation? Have you ever felt underestimated or cast aside, only to discover your own hidden strength? Let us know in the comments below. If this story moved you, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear that their rejection isn't their ending. It might just be their beginning. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. Because Alara's story is just beginning. The blood moon rises. Ancient enemies wake. And the matriarch will need all her power, all her guards, and all her newfound strength to face what comes next. Thank you for listening to this chapter of the Moonborn Saga. We'll see you in the next chapter, where darkness gathers and the true test of a queen begins. Until then, remember, you are never as powerless as others would have you believe. Sometimes you just need the right moment and the right family to help you remember who you truly are.